Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Today, I have my best friend and brother, Evan Casey. He is an incredible human, one of my favorite conversationalists. He is a DJ and the co-founder of Desert Hearts Black, and a part of the Desert Hearts label and festival community. He is consciously integrating his life and interweaving communities left and right, and really just doing everything from a heart-centered place. Super proud to know him and love him. He is my best friend's husband and just such a big part of my life and the evolution of myself. So here he is, Evan Casey. Hello.
Hey, that was so sweet. Thank you for having me. So excited to be doing this with you.
Yeah, it's such an honor to have you in this space. And, you know, having Caitlin being a part of the integral process of putting this sweet little creative baby out into the world. I really just wanted to bring you on because, again, you have been such a huge part of my own evolution. Without you and Caitlin, I don't really know where I'd be in my life. And with the person that you are creatively, consciously, and just within the community of my own life, you just really are, you're an integral part of it. So you have to be here, a part of, you know, the first couple episodes and how it's being put out into the world. So
absolutely. Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you. So many things I feel have led to this podcast for you, and it's a beautiful thing to see it happening.
Thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to start off by having you introduce yourself a little bit. Evan and I met in college, but you really have always been such a creative, conscious human, like since the moment I met you at 18, which I feel like is kind of something hard to come by as an 18-year-old. And I kind of just wanted to ask you, like, where did that come from? Because I feel like you had it within you from such an early age. Like, it really, again, I wouldn't be the person I am without you. So I have to ask that.
Well, first of all, likewise. Hey, it's two-way street with us. Absolutely. I think first and foremost, I'd have to say I come from such a loving family that I always felt supported, and I always just felt this sense of togetherness and never being on my own. And it built a really strong foundation for me. And then that met with the freedom to kind of rebel and open my mind and do the things that no one in my family had really done before. And then get to an age where I could even talk about it. You know, even in those moments, they were open and receptive. And so I think a mixture of a really good foundation to then a lot of freedom and trust as a young adult, you know, were probably the two biggest things. And getting out of the phase of being in that child-parent relationship to then a friend relationship with them has been just the greatest. It's been so special. And so I think it all has to start with them. And I'm one of 4 boys. So the way that they navigated that and turned us all into, I would say, pretty solid men, I have to give a lot of the credit to them.
Certainly. Shout out Tom and Linda.
Tom and Linda.
They're the best. Yeah. No, I mean, even as a college student and like coming over to your house, like, and meeting your family, they've always been such welcoming people, and I've always felt safe in their home. And you're right. They really have created that. I mean, you feel like everyone that they've invited into their home, it's that communal feel of like, okay, everyone's safe here. We can all like just enjoy each other's company and have open conversation and feel safe and held all the while through. And you really have created that again with Caitlin. And it's so great to see you in your home and you having now your second dog, and you're you know, you have just this incredible ability to welcome people into your space and into your sphere that maybe, you know, all of the folks that I think that you're friends with really do dance to the beat of their own drum, which I appreciate. And you've cultivated that. And so you've cultivated that with a lot of intention. So what have you intentionally done for yourself to do that? I know it's like, yeah, your family, but like also it starts with you, and you've done that intentionally for yourself. So what have you done to do that for you and the
Sure.
people that you love?
Um, well, first, I'm definitely a big social personality. So that's where it comes from. My mom always jokes, of the four of us, I got all of that. I've always loved meeting new people, connecting with new people, and I'm also just pretty insistent on, if I meet somebody that seems great for whatever reason, I tend to really pursue that. Whether
Mm,
it's like friends at certain levels of my life, groups. That's kind of the way led down the path of Desert Hearts. Was I just met this group of guys and I was like, you're all incredible. What is this? And I just followed them, and so
mm,
a mixture of, I think, leading and following has led me to be surrounded by a lot of really special people. And um, just once you do, allowing them to be all that they are, dropping any
mm,
judgment or any sort of, you know, infliction on how I'd want people to be, but loving their authenticity, and so that's something that
yeah,
I just love, people that are just bold and weird and funny and kind. And I think that's been magnified tremendously by the Desert Hearts and just the dance community in general. But then you realize that can exist everywhere. So when other people might tend to be timid or a little more shy, because I've experienced one far side of the spectrum, I can tend to find ways to bring it out of other people in a way that isn't too pressing or too
hmm,
extroverted, I guess. But yeah, I like to bring out the weirdness in people that maybe they keep to themselves more often.
totally.
Yeah.
Caitlin. I mean, Caitlin talked about it
Yeah.
in our episode. It's like she's a perfect example. And I think the combination of the two of us together was like, eh, you're bound to like open up and blossom, little butterfly. Like
Yeah.
two extroverts as your best friends. Like, yeah, it's like bound to happen. And I can't thank you enough for bringing her into your sphere so that I could therefore know her. Like, I think obviously we know that was like cosmically intended. Um, it was written in the stars before we knew, and I'm pretty sure that we've done life together before. So
Yeah,
super grateful
absolutely.
for it. Um, would you share a little bit about Desert Hearts and kind of how that story began for you? Because that
Yeah.
is such a big part of your life. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So that was, there's a group of four guys. They're all now some of my best friends, that started this movement, this culture of inclusivity and great music and art and experience. And, again, like the lack of judgment. And it has now turned into something so much bigger, and so much bigger than any one person or any group of people. And it really has formed a community. Everything from 21-year-olds first getting that freedom to, you know, 67-year-old married couples with kids and grandkids, and all sharing the dance floor and art installations. And it's just really turned into something beyond anyone's imagination. And I was just fortunate enough to connect with them musically and on just a friend level. Really, really saw eye to eye, and they brought me into it. And must have been, 8 years ago now, which is maybe more. I'm trying to even think when 2000. Really, it doesn't matter because it feels like it's been forever in the best way. Just so
Mm-hmm.
so many connections, so many experiences. My parents have made their way to Desert Hearts multiple times, and everyone just loves meeting them. Middle of the night, and they'll be in the DJ booth watching. And it's yeah, it's just one of those things that I feel like anybody really can experience and feel comfortable. And that to me was the most important thing. Was it's all of that safety, all of that other, what might keep someone from going to something. But then at the end of the day, it's just so much love and it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two
Totally.
things
Like,
I'm very biased towards.
Yeah, you are. And I think that's what makes people feel safe around you. Like for you being, I mean, like meeting you at 18, and there's so there's so much I think that can be convoluted in the college atmosphere for young women, and I never felt unsafe around you. In fact, I felt it was just like an instant safety, and you were really kind of like a a blanket for me so often when I would just like need that comfort from a male figure. And I didn't necessarily feel like I had it in some places, and it was like, oh, I can go back to Evan and like feel safe
Yeah.
and feel seen and never feel judged. And that was so deeply appreciated by me. And it's kind of just been that's been our whole relationship. We've been so close for going on 17 years, which is so wild. And we've seen each other in so many different phases of life, but even still, like it's just been this constant path of acceptance for one another and where we've chosen to go. And I'm super grateful for it.
Yeah.
But seeing you just thrive in the music community, and that being such a foundation to our friendship and our relationship is so beautiful and so special. And yeah, I like wanted you to just share a little bit about your musical influence and kind of
Yeah.
how DJing got started. Caitlin shared a little bit about it in our episode, but I want to hear it from your mouth, from
Yeah.
your
We
heart.
might, without talking about it, we might have the same origin story of um, back in the LimeWire downloading illegal music and burning CD days. Um, I just loved sharing music. You know, it wasn't anything specific. If you probably went back and listened to any of them now, I'm sure there's some good stuff, some cringe stuff, and across the board, you know, as an influential 14-year-old, who knows? But yeah, I just loved from the first moment it was a plausible thing to share music. And so I think that's really where it stems from of the only thing that I like more than, you know, bouncing around a dance floor, bouncing around a venue event, connecting with friends, new, old, you know, everything in between is to then step on and share my music. And I feel like it's because that's just a super potent, concentrated version of connecting with people. Whereas instead
Mhm.
of you talk to one person at a time, a few people at a time, when you're at that helm, you are really just sending out crazy waves of like what moves you to
Mhm.
thousands of other people at the same time. And there's really just nothing like that. It's hard to fully explain, but every time you leave it, you just feel like you're floating. You know, you just because you know that you just connected with so many people. And yeah, I think that's just what led to it was my path to be closer to other people. And because I had
Mhm.
so many thoughts and so many things to say, and even to this day, I just feel like I'm always talking, and it's hard for me to sit still. But it's just I love connecting with people, and I think that is always going to be the root of it. You know, and that's why the doing it online for the pandemic and all those days it was so challenging because you don't realize how much you get back from that, you know, collective fountain when you're all in the same place. You don't realize how much energy you really pull from that until you're no longer doing it, and then you just realize there's no substitute for it. And that can be for anyone something different, but for me it's always going to be that.
Yeah. Last summer, I had the pleasure of seeing Evan play live, and it had been a really long time. Just Brian and I had kind of gone on our path, and Caitlin and I had mentioned that in our episode where we were just kind of like living different lives, and we were
Hmm.
still close, but we were just doing different things. And last summer, when I had the pleasure of seeing Evan play, I couldn't help but just weep. I was like on the dance floor. It's making me emotional to think about it. I was on the dance floor just dancing and watching my best friend play, and there's like thousands of people behind me, and they're just like vibing to his frequency that he's putting out. And I was just so proud of you. Um, yeah,
Yeah, my
I'm
my
so
strongest
emotional.
memory of that night um, was the photo of you and Brian, where he is just as loose as it gets. Just, I mean, I remember it was the hottest day recorded in Oregon history, of course.
It sure
So we're
was.
in a warehouse just sweating, but you both were just ear to ear dancing with each other, posing for this picture like it was, I'm not even sure, like a funk party in the 70s, just like couldn't have been happier. And you two just look so present. And, it's hard sometimes in a place of that many people and that many energies and, to really connect. And it seemed like you both had just completely let go into this moment that I wasn't even aware was happening. And then I saw the photo afterwards and like, yep, that's it right there. That is,
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why all of this is happening. When we
Mm-hmm.
gather in that sort of space, is who knows how many hundreds of moments are happening just like that one, where that's the most powerful thing to get from someone, is to say, I really needed this. And I feel like, especially coming out of what we just all came out of, still going through,
Mm-hmm.
for people to come, we hear like, your streams got me through. I can't even explain, or this is exactly what I needed because this and this and this were happening and I just needed to get out and dance. And so that's really what we think about now going forward, is each time you go into something, it could just be someone's been working for 6 months straight and they just need an outlet. They need some space. They need just a raw, visceral experience. And that really helps you, whether you're playing to, 200 people in an intimate room, 2,000 people in a bigger room. It's like, it doesn't matter anymore. It's about what can you give,
Yeah.
because a lot of times you get, especially in the early days, you get caught up in the like, okay, this is my show. What do I want to play? What am I doing? How's it going to be received? Whereas now it's like, let me just be this sort of vessel of sharing what I love. Because if I love it, it's authentic. That'll be more of a connection than me trying to do what I think other people may want. And then when that's reciprocated by, a describing experience. And recently a guy said that he was listening to something that I put out, and when he was on this epic solo hike, and he said it carried him
Mm.
through like the toughest 3 hours of this hike and wrote me this long message. And so you just really never know what it's going to do for somebody. So
Mm-hmm.
just put everything you can into it, because even if it's one person, 10 people, whatever it may be, it's powerful and it's super potent. And I think that's what keeps me going in a creative direction, because it happened to me, it's happened to other people with me, and it just continues to grow. And yeah, it's really it's expanding, and that's the coolest thing, is it's just the experience just keeps building and building, and it's a special thing.
And it's constantly evolving, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure as hard as the process was for you to not be playing for folks for those couple of years during the pandemic, and for you to not have, I mean, you were playing for folks, but it wasn't in the same
Yeah.
capacity. You weren't playing warehouses, you weren't playing at festivals, and that changed. That changed
Mhm.
for you, like, because the reciprocal act of like you exchanging energy with that many people at once, or however many times you were throughout the year, you didn't have that. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure that transformed your creative process and what creating meant for you. Did that inspire you more so coming out of the pandemic? Or did
It
it kind of
was
solidify, like, this is what I'm meant to be doing, this is what I'm passionate about? Like, what were your feelings for that
so
after
it
that
was
process?
I think most artists in any form would tell you it was all nine shades of what you were just saying. It was
Mm.
1 week you went into it and you're like, oh my gosh, we have so much time. Let's make music. Let's create. Let's do this. And then the next week was, I don't want to touch or do anything. Like, I'm so drained. I'm so mentally exhausted. There's no end in sight to this. So what are we even doing it for? And you felt your vibration just dropping, and then thinking to yourself, all right, why am I just in this pity party? Everyone's struggling. Just don't feel like you either have to go 100% quit in anything. And I think that was the big lesson for me, was pressure in both directions of, is this what I'm meant to do? It's definitely what I'm passionate about, but do I need to kind of tighten things up in terms of a, long-term future for me, my wife, our family? And this could be its own podcast of me going back and forth of feeling, what should I do versus what would I want to do versus, what's possible when you're not only responsible for yourself. And the short version is that I began to realize that everyone who cared about me just wanted to see me in that state of passion. They didn't care what it was. They didn't care which direction it was, but they would all say, when, just like your story, when they would see me in that element, it became so clear that, like, why wouldn't this be what you're supposed to do? Because look what it does to your entire frequency. They would just see a brightness in me that wasn't there for a while. And because, it has its own challenges traveling alone. There's the ups and downs of just being on the road, of you go into this really peak moment and then it's over. And then you go home back to your hotel and you're just sitting there with your ears ringing, just by yourself. Like, man, I wish I was around some friends or, some people that I care about. And so that goes back and forth too, of how much time are you on the road, how much time are you at home with your family. But ultimately, those are the experiences that make me feel the most alive. And so that's, how could I not follow that path when that's what I encourage so many other people to do, is when you just feel the most joy, when you feel the most, sober high, where you're just vibrating, your body is just excited and you just feel like you can't catch your breath, purely based on an experience. Those are the things you need to chase. And, everything's in moderation. Got to make sure that your life is taken care of in the way that you would hope. But at the same time, if you have a partner, if you have a family, they want you to be passionate. I think that will always be the truth. There's going to be struggles and fights and time spent away, but ultimately, if you are passionless, it will not work. And I just feel that's true, and so that's something that I've really tried to hold on to, is realizing that if I'm doing what makes me feel the strongest and the brightest, then it must ripple through everything else in my life, and to silence all of that or to mute any of it, not only is going to bring me down, but also the people who like to see me at my best. So that's the kind of the full circle, but that took some time through COVID. That was not a quick realization. It was a roller coaster, as I know it was for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I think especially with creatives, I think that we're performing their art on a live stage, like, that was taken away. And like you said, like, when you're realizing that that's how you're fed, like, energetically, that's a powerful thing to realize. When it's taken away, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize that that's how I was, like, digesting this creative passion of mine. Like, you're getting that, especially looking out into a crowd, like, just having witnessed that experience with you last summer. And I looked back and I was standing out at the front and I just looked back and there's like thousands of people who are just like vibing, like having the best time, dancing their asses off. And I'm like, yes, this is what it's about. Like, that would make me emotional every single time seeing that and you playing and all of that. But like, I just want to say how proud of you I am, because I did see that roller coaster happen for you, and I saw you take yourself through it, and you really were compassionate with yourself, like, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. And I know it wasn't always like that, but what did you do to ground yourself and kind of like bring yourself back into that sense of reality of like what were the tools, I guess, that you used to kind of bring yourself back into that creative space of like, this is what I meant to do? I know it was like a feeling first, but what were the things that you did to be proactive about that creative process after the fact?
I would have to give so much influence and, credit to the influence of both Caitlin, my wife, and Marbs, my partner in the label, and just, best friend, best man at the wedding. Just really reiterating that the sentiment of, we love you either way, but we think this is what you're moved to do. But if you stop tomorrow, no one's going to talk about it. It's not about what you're doing. It's just that they felt so strongly about my state when I was there. So their constant support has to be first and foremost. And then, as a textbook overthinker and problem solver, and I say problem solver and, I think I'm solving the problem. I just got to a point of, you don't have to solve this right now. Like, you're not sure which career path to take. Can you do them both right now? Yes. Okay. Then do them. And when it comes to a point where a decision has to be made, handle it there. But you're asking these questions and holding weight for these dilemmas that don't even exist yet. So book the shows, go on the road, see how they feel, come back to work, because that's been the exhausting part. Is most people have their weekend if they work Monday through Friday, which I am currently doing both. So they'll have their Monday through Friday and do nothing on the weekends. And then for me, it's Monday through Friday. And then, this past weekend, Saturday morning, fly to San Francisco, play a show, and then come back on Sunday and then go back to work on Monday. So it was really the moments of, are you taking care of yourself enough? Is there any longevity to this? Just in terms of taking care of myself, like physically and mentally, and then realizing that there totally was, so realizing that I didn't need to walk both these paths in my mind and see what the end goal was and then decide, because that's just a huge circle waste of time. Why are you going to run your mind through those? And instead, I'm just walking both of those right now and making the decisions that feel right in the moment. And it seems to be working out, but there was a long time where I would just try to convince myself I didn't want it because maybe I didn't think it would work. And that's a super toxic thing of like, it's actually the right decision to let that go, because you're doing other things. You're going to take care of this side of the projects. And so I think that was a big one for me, was just try them out. Just let them both flow and see. Don't make a decision that's going to affect, going forward until you have to. And once I relieved that pressure for myself, everything got easier. And it still comes up here and there, but at the same time, now I know it's manageable. And, it's, if I want to go on I get to go to play in Bend and then play in Portland and then spend time with you. It's like, look at what that's doing for me, and we may not be in Portland without it. So it's opening up so many other avenues, and that's something I'm truly grateful for. And I'm just trying to walk it right now and not feel like I need to solve so much, which is a huge mental downfall of mine. It's just trying to solve things that don't need solving.
You and I share that. And I think that's hilarious, because we really are built in a lot of, we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. We have that passion and just vigor for life. Like, how can we conquer all of our dreams with as much, love and compassion at the forefront for everything that we do? But with that comes a lot of thought sometimes, which isn't always the most helpful thing, because that if we can't grasp that monkey mind of ours, then it can get out of control really quick. And you're an incredible writer, and I know that you also use that as a tool. I don't know how often you've been using it lately, but in the pandemic, I did want to touch on this because I think it's awesome that you did it, and you were putting your energy again towards people. Even though you weren't playing shows, Evan took it upon himself to send out emails to his circle of friends and basically create this little format of thoughtful expression, and then also ask questions, giving people journal prompts, and just these things to ponder upon, right? Like, how can we open ourselves up more to these conversations within our own experience, but collectively as a community? And so he was sending these weekly emails out, and it was so tender. It was so sweet. And I know I got a lot from it. And I just wanted to see like what your creative process was with that. Like, because again, you are such an incredible writer, and it's, your creative lens is, it's vast, but yeah, like what was your creative process like with that? Because even though you weren't creating musically, you were still doing things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably fast to a fault. One thing I would say is I tend to get really excited about something and then dive in, and then other things fade away and not following through. And, the same, I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that. But something that gave was, I enjoy writing. I enjoy spending time thinking, solitary, just kind of going through different things that pop into my head. I like pairing that sort of writing meditation with music. So, called it the Tribe Journal because I wanted everybody to feel a part of it and a part of something, but also completely alone in it so they could freely think, and that was one thing. I would post the prompts, I think we were doing it once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple of questions, and then it was maybe 2 or 3 songs that I enjoyed listening to while I was working through it. And then if there was a podcast or a book that I felt related to it that I'd experienced, I would attach that to it as well and send it out individually, to the group, but also say, if you're moved by something that you found in this, if any part of it touched you in a certain way and you feel like it would help you to share, or you think other people might relate to it, send it back to me and I'll send it to the whole group and give them a chance to, see what other people are doing with it as well. And yeah, it was really cool. It grew, 120 people, whatever it was, because I eventually shared it on my Instagram saying, this is what I'm doing. It's private, but also a group thing. So if you want to join, just let me know. And a lot of people in that moment that I didn't necessarily talk with a lot, maybe were acquaintances, maybe even just on social media, which added a cool new piece to it, because then it started to feel almost like a dance floor where you're like, I know some people here, but I don't know everybody here, but I know that everybody wants to be here. And so that opened up kind of a similar experience. Yeah, and again, it was just one of those things of always wanting to, if I hear something cool, if I read something cool, I even to a fault, I'll stop it and be like, I have to tell people about this, and that's just something that, I've been told that I even did when I was little. I would just always bring things to people. And
I love that.
That has affected my own ability to, I think, experience, is in terms of finding a challenge there is I'm always thinking about sharing something or what other people might think of it, rather than just, it's almost the comparison of people filming at a concert. It's like, I know you want to have this and you want to share this, but also what are you holding on to, And so I think that eventually got to a point, the journal stopped, where I just felt like I was putting more effort into putting things out than even doing them myself. And so, and I could feel that creativeness falling away of, I like that people are getting something from this, but it's kind of hit a wall for me. And that's where I knew I needed to kind of go inward and just do it alone. And I think that was it was related to the disconnection of COVID and my own path and not knowing what I wanted to do. And so just feeling a little too stretched, and that's something that I think I'm still coming back from is it's hard to have boundaries when all you want to do is connect with people, but then you feel like you don't have it. So then you shut it off and you don't feel like you're the same person. And so, I had a nice identity crisis, like I think most of us, but when you're so aligned with that social fire side of yourself to then really having to come in and remove that, you almost feel like your superpower is gone. And so that's something I think I'm definitely still trying to regain, but in a positive way. And you couldn't just be that forever, needed to evolve and needed to grow
Mm-hmm.
personally rather than just as a presenter, as a shower, as like a, sharer, connector, because sometimes that is a scapegoat. Always providing, always thinking about other people sometimes is okay, and then sometimes it means that you're ignoring whatever you got going on. And I think
Totally.
that was a big thing of the, Caitlin always jokes that Ted Lasso was a real eye-opening show for me because she says we're the exact same person. Everything's good, everything's positive. I got, you need something, I got it, you need something. And then you get to a point where there's just a mental break because you have not taken care of the things that you need to. You haven't addressed things that you've gone through because you want to be strong for other people. And so I think that was a huge pendulum swing back in the other direction. It was definitely a scary time of like, well, if I'm not that, then what am I? And finding ways to be both, to still
Totally.
be that Ted Lasso energy for people, but in a way that's much more balanced.
Yeah. And how do you do that for yourself now? Like, how do you find yourself finding that balance?
Ooh, still figuring it out. No, but
Yeah, that's okay.
I think like one thing I used to do prior to all this, and then now started doing again, is just um, random reach outs to friends because I feel like that was a big part to me was I kind of dipped away, and not that I felt guilty, but I just felt like I wanted to show up for people. Um, Not in a big way, but just in like just so you know, like I'm here because I could have really used that, or I went through a time where someone did do that for me, and countless times that you've done that for me, so not necessarily basing it on anything of just a random, say my 5, 10, 20 closest people in my life, just sending a text, picking up the phone, seeing how people are doing. Then on like my own side, just cold shower resets, walks with Caitlin and Wally, trying to be much more diligent about sleep, because that was one thing with the music side of life that you don't sleep nearly as much as you should, and then you realize you can and do both. So just getting better sleep and just really just being still. I think just being okay with not needing to be on the go all the time has been a big one for me.
Mm-hmm. I I totally feel that. That's been, I think, since coming up to Portland, that's been one of the biggest things that I've needed to learn for myself, and learning that it's all okay. Like, you're allowed to be it all. You don't have
Yeah,
to just be on all the time. And I
yeah,
think people that are like you and I that have that affirmation also that we get back from other folks, like that they love that part of us. And it's like, well, do you love me just hiding in a cave and,
it's so
like
true.
the depths and darkness of my soul? And fortunately for you, you have people who see you and know you and love you with all your colors, and I think that that's really important. And I think your community really speaks volumes to how they show up and how they support everyone. And part of that, I think, is really grounded in the community of like the Desert Hearts vibe, where it's like you can be all of it. Like, you
Yeah,
can wear your freak flag high and, like, be accepted for it. And
yeah.
so I
Or you can be in
just,
like a black hoodie on the outskirts of the dance floor because you don't want to talk to anyone and you're feeling social anxiety or whatever it is, and you just want to be alone in the music. Equally welcomed, and I think that's the best part about it is the spectrum is so wide, and
yeah,
yet you just walk around and people, smile on their face, and it's just, it allows you to remember that you don't have to be anything either, because I think that's a big part is if everybody feels on this, level of expectation, even if it's as simple as being positive, not anything to do with music or any of that, but just feeling like you need to be a certain way, you're never going to let go of that until you
Mm-hmm.
realize that everybody else is feeling this social pressure. And that was a big, big part of COVID for me, was in this amazing community of just, musicians and dancers and singers and people that are just killer comedians on like just the social level, just funny and just all the time. And then realizing that they suffer from just crippling social anxiety and just hit it forever. You just realize how much we put on because we think we have to, and really, more often than not, no one expects anything of you, and they're just
Yeah,
there trying to survive just like you are. And I think that
just like you are.
that is a big thing for me, was
Mm,
how much of that do I love doing and how much of it did I think was expected of me? And then you realize all the expectations put on yourself. It really isn't coming from other people, but that's like an easy scapegoat of like, well, people expect this out of me, and that's just you saying you expect it out of yourself, and you think that people won't like you without it, and that was it was nice to see the vulnerable side of people that you just thought were rocks, you know,
totally.
myself
Totally.
included.
I know. I wish I would have like recorded myself a few times with my breathwork sessions that I was doing for those 3 months, because that would be so helpful to just show folks like, oh yeah, like you think I have it all together? Let me just show you something real quick.
Yeah,
Just like, sweet little lens into vulnerability. Like, no, like everybody has their moments of feeling, and if you don't, like, that's an invitation, I'd say. Like, right?
yeah,
Like,
that was me. That I would easily. That was me for a long time. Of it's just life's great even when it's not, just being the experience. And I think I masked that as this, spiritually evolved, just like, oh, I get it, to then being like,
mm,
oh, you are just really not leaning into things that need to be felt. You're kind of existing in this surface level. And I think that happens when you have a big community like that, is you can bounce around and you can fill that space. But then as soon as more depth, more work is needed, I was always looking towards what other people needed. And I think that was the divergent, and rather than, okay, let me just make sure everything's good and then I can go help other people, I was extending before going inward. To just avoid, something simple, something complex. Either way, it was more just like, oh, let me be a caretaker, let me be a host, and then realizing that's just because, you know, there's something that doesn't want to be addressed.
yeah, well, that's been your strength for so long. And of course, like, it's hard, it's challenging to go into this new avenue of like what's unknown, right? Like, the unknown is scary. It's always going to be scary. But you mentioned something earlier that I feel like uh, you didn't say the word fear, but you were like alluding to this fear of like, is this what I'm supposed to do? And it's like that same, it's almost that same lens of like, well, you leaned into that, and that is the uncomfortable. And that's where you had the opportunity to explore, like, okay, well, this is what I'm passionate about. And even if I'm fearful from like the expectations of the world, like, you really got to lean into that space. And you also had so many other things that were going on in your life, like personal things,
Yeah.
that I think probably lended a hand in that part of your evolve. Because sometimes the hardest things that happen to us in our lives can help us go there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. It helps you shed the other things that you were worried about that you realize don't really have any weight, and you were holding on to something that didn't matter, or stressing about something that you hadn't even met yet. And I think that was more so not fear, but doubt, of is this something that's going to be able to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of beyond just having fun, being in the moment. And so that's kind of where I've always had this inner battle going on of, do I like this just because it's fun? Because it's something that like comes natural to me, because it's something that I'm good at, or what? And then you start to realize those are all things that are positive. If you're those things with something, that means you should pursue it. It's not like, because it gets labeled somewhat as just a party, that this whole thing is just a big party. But then I think going back to what we were saying about, the title of this podcast, there's a communion that exists in that community. And when you're in person, when you lose hugs, when you lose dancing, when you lose just pure raw energy coming in and out of, the ceremony that you're partaking in, you just feel this huge loss. And I think that was where it separated of like, this is not just a party. This is so much deeper than that. And it can be, it can be a party for a lot of people, and it should be if that's the release that they're looking for. But in terms of the career aspect of it, it has to be so much more. And I think that was where I finally came back to of, it doesn't need to be this renegade wild lifestyle. You can partake and connect and communicate your vision, and then also have your boundaries, get your rest, take care of yourself, be home. And so then it's just coming back to the balance, and realizing that you don't have to figure it out today, and most people don't have it figured out. So how can you enjoy and pour the most of yourself into what you're doing? And I think it positively unfolds from there.
Totally. It's almost like you get to reconstruct your own creative idea of what this new life looks for you. And you are a very creative human being. So I think that you can just have fun with that. And that's going to be a fun place for you to play in, like creating new intentions and new ways to flow in and out of this life of the structure, and then coloring outside the lines and doing it whatever the fuck you want. like you get to do it all, and you get to play in all of the aspects of it. So I think that's a good place to be.
I think just got too serious. I think I overcorrected, and that was okay. But I'm at the point now of, it doesn't have to be so serious all the time. And I think the lightness and the safety and the empowerment that I brought to people is really important for me. And so I think stepping back into that and how I can show up for people in the ways that I used to, while now also including myself in that, making sure that I'm taken care of, and I'm not exerting energy that I don't have, and communicating that well. I think good things stem from there for me.
Totally. Everyone, I think, right? Like creating boundaries for ourselves so that we can be of service first for ourselves, because we can't serve from an empty cup. It's not possible. You can. Yeah. And then at some point you can't, and your body will let you know. And
absolutely.
Totally. Dis-ease, right? Like disease will come and I don't mean that as like a threat or anything, but it's like dis-ease is like a lack of regulation within your nervous system, your body. Like your body will let you know. Yeah, it's the ultimate vessel that carries you through all of your creative processes and paths. And for us to create a new world, and for artists to do what they need to do, I think it's so important to be mindful of that process of filling our cup first, so that we can then be of service for others.
Yeah. You've
got thousands of people to make dance, Evan.
Yeah, exactly. what a special gift of a task that is,
Yeah.
So your body's the one thing you can't lie to. And I think that was a big lesson for me, of thinking that my positive outlook will just overcome anything. This is my perspective. This is making me feel strong. This is making me, but then at a certain point, it's just more complex than that, and there's other things that need to be taken care of that go beyond positivity, and you just have to give yourself that support. And that was a big coming out for me of the peaks and valleys of like the last few years, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you to hear you say this. And, you know, you just had a couple shows, and I know that you just, you know, that gives you life. I cannot wait to see you in a couple weeks and
Yeah,
watch
my
you
next
play.
tour
And
with you.
yeah, I cannot wait. Yeah, I wanted to like hear what you have in the works, and like if you could share with the folks, you know, that are listening, like where they can find you and all of those things. If you have any new grooves in the mix and all of that.
Yeah, so the next, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, as our lovely host is, I'm going to be January 13th in Bend and January 14th in Portland. And uh, Instagram, Evan Casey Music is probably the best way. You can find links on there, SoundCloud, everything else that I've put out, Beatport, all the music, all that stuff. And then the one thing I would say is if you can find yourself in Southern California, first week of May, Desert Hearts Festival, it is incredible. I'm very biased, but it is just one of the most beautiful experiences. And it's a whole weekend of music, art, love, people, right on the lake. It is just, it changed my life. I think it's changed the life of most people that I've brought to it, just in terms of release, experience, celebration, all these different things. And if you find yourself there, or if you live anywhere else in the U.S., just follow Desert Hearts because we tour all over. Um, yeah, that's the one thing I'll say, because it's just this huge love movement that I feel very fortunate to be a part of, and for them bringing me into the space all those many years ago and allowing me to still be a part of it, and the countless incredible people that I've met, you know, all over the country, all at the festival, just all the different places it's taken me, and yeah, just massive love for that.
I love that. I'm so proud of you.
Proud of you.
And because you are one of the most wise souls I know, I would love for you to just share a little word of wisdom for the folks that are listening, just because, you know, I know
Yeah.
you've got it on the fly.
Oh man, yeah. You know, I just, especially now, I find myself trying to wear a smile more, not because it's fake or forced, but because so often, you know, whether it be in a store, somewhere outside of a high energy, fun experience, but just in a more normal space, so many people connecting with it and smiling back in a way of they were looking for it. They were looking for a smile in a world that just seems so head down, bumping into each other, you know, and that's just one thing that locking eyes and smiling with somebody just brings so much warmth, especially in places that are, you know, it's the holidays. You go into a grocery store right now, not striking up a ton of conversations with people, but at the same time, you just might. Um, I think there's just a lot of people out there living a very similar experience of both stress and fear and doubt and worry, and then at the same, just the love, the desire for connection. We're just so much more alike. And I think exuding that sort of positivity when you have it and retreating when you need it is probably my biggest piece of advice right now, because at the end of the day, I love getting compared to Ted Lasso, because man, you put smiles on people's faces and you just let them know you don't have to take things so seriously. We can just sit around and laugh. We can just connect with one another. But then also, it's a good reminder of take the step back when you need it and take care of yourself, and know that the people who care about you will give you that space. And you might have to shed some friends. You guaranteed will make some new ones, but um, take the space for yourself, because the people that are meant to stick around will allow you that space and welcome you back with open arms.
Always. So proud of you. I love you so much. Thank you so much for this sweet conversation. And
Thanks
can't
for
wait to
having
have
me
you
on.
again. There's going to be many more conversations with Evan in this space. Definitely want to talk to him and Caitlin one-on-one at some point in time soon. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Look forward to that. But I love you so much, and sending you off with the utmost love.
All right. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Love you.
Bye. Hey there. It's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too. So if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.